Ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you can hear me. I am quickly going to change a couple of the settings on the stream so that I can see everybody who joins the lobby. So the screen is going to go black shortly, and we shall see if we can get underway with the stream. I'm going to wait only a few more minutes for a few more spectators to stream into the live stream, and hopefully we'll be able to get going quite quickly. So, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. I can see already a few drivers are filtering in to the live stream. I just need to make sure that everybody can hear me loud and clear and see the live stream in all of its glory. I'm not lagging. My microphone isn't popping or glitching out. If any messages can be sent into the Tier 3 group chat, that would be much appreciated, ladies and gentlemen. But in the meantime, as I said before, I'm just going to wait for an extra couple of minutes. Anybody who is tuning in to the YouTube video, once it goes on YouTube after the live stream has finished, probably just wants me to, start straight away. I understand that. However, I'm just going to wait for a few more viewers to stream in. I know that a lot of people really want to watch this race. I've heard it's an absolute banger, and I am looking forward to being able to present it to you lot. So I'm just quickly going to wait for another couple of... I was going to say another couple of minutes. I'll probably wait about 30 seconds for the last few drivers to filter in. Right, ladies and gentlemen, I believe it's time to start the race in only probably about 30 seconds. I'm just going to quickly pull up the two things that I need to look at on the video. Right, here we go. Right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to do the official intro. Why not? Welcome back to Aero League Racing. I know what you're thinking. Who's this strange voice on the end of the microphone? I've heard that the previous commentator, sick individual, I believe he may have been called, has perhaps left the league. I'm not sure when he will be back. So in the meantime, you're stuck with me as your reserve commentator for the rest of Tier 3. I've obviously commentated a few times in the past, so a few of you would have recognised my voice. I'm ALR Sick Boy. I normally race in Tier 1. And I've been doing pretty rubbish recently, so I have retired to the commentary box. Here we are, round 5 of Tier 3. We've only got a handful of rounds remaining in this 8-round championship, and I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, this is really shaping up to be something magnificent. Only 18 points separate the top 3 drivers heading into this race. Of course, as always, this race actually happened on Monday night, but the commentary has been delayed by a few days. Unfortunately, I've been very busy racing in the league and doing other stuff. So here we are, Thursday night. The race is about to begin. Obviously, first in the championship, we have Mr. Hurricane. As I quickly turn on the race display, and I tell you what, we'll keep it like that. Mr. Hurricane in P3 right now, ladies and gentlemen, as I am going to change my control scheme later on. So Hurricane in P3 is actually leading the championship right now. Unfortunately, he had a pretty bad race last week. He's currently got 104 points. And then tied in P2 are the other two. One British driver, Patsy87, who is unfortunately got a bit of a bad qualifying down into P6, and L. Ian. But we are going to start the race right here, right now. I see a few viewers already leaving. So here we go. I'm very much looking forward to this race. I have a track map and a standings on hand as the round 5 sprint race is underway, and it's a pretty good start from the entire pack. But I'm telling you, It's an exceptional start there by Hurricane and O'Leary J as we head up into turn 1. And unfortunately my control scheme has all kind of messed things up, but it's even more messed up for O'Leary J as he gets a little bit of contact with Basti there into turn 1, and it means that he loses a couple positions there in the AMG 2020. Patsy just ahead of him in P4. I would be on board with the other drivers further ahead in front, but it doesn't seem like much drama is happening right at the very top as Ross Thorne is overtaking Alan for P7. Far superior straight line speed in the Chevrolet Corvette. And look at that, ladies and gentlemen, Ross Thorne goes completely deep into turn 3. He completely forgets his brakes entirely, and wow, he's lost an amazing amount of positions right there. Ross Thorne all the way in last position. We can see over the next 8 laps of this sprint race whether he can make up a few more positions, as Alpha Zad is currently in P1 with a pretty healthy lead actually above Regnix in P2 in the 911. I've heard that the Mazda RX Vision has been quite a successful car in this league. It is quite a good overall all-rounder. It is currently leading the Constructors' Championship by about 29-30 points so far. And, well, it seems to be the strongest car out of the lot. It's an incredibly well-rounded car indeed. As we're going to be sticking with the bonnet cam for now, rather than the spectator cam, just for the next couple of laps. I think the driver to follow right now, I know that I'm only pressing down, I will change my control scheme for the future race. I do apologise, ladies and gentlemen. Is O'Leary J, currently sitting as he gets a little bit squirrely there through the downhill S's into one of my favourite turns in the track, this little 90-degree right-hander onto probably the second longest straight in the track over this suspension bridge. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, he's right behind Pasti 97 for P4, but he's struggling quite a bit to overtake the man as he heads into the 90-degree left-hander after that long straight. I don't know which corner number it is, but it's an incredibly high number. There's a lot of corners here in Sanquoisi. And his teammate, Major XDC, is also a bit squirrely in the Mercedes AMG. I wonder if it's a problem with the Mercedes itself. I haven't heard too many complaints about the stability of the Mercedes. It's quite a heavy car. But it seems like both Mercedes drivers right now are struggling to keep it on the road. I do apologise for the spam of camera angles as we are on board right now with Hurricane as he's 3 wide into the hairpin at the end of the straight. And it seems like Hurricane, the current leader of the WDC, is... well, he's going to be sticking on the inside, ladies and gentlemen, and Alpha Zad, his teammate, is going to be taking a wide line through the hairpin and into the S's. He now goes side by side with Regnix in the 911. He gets a little tap there from Regnix from the outside, but he sticks to that P2, and that's just given Alpha Zad more of an opportunity to pull out of the race. I'm pretty sure Alpha Zad has pretty much led the race right from the beginning. It's pretty dominating performance, I would say that, but his teammate was right behind him, and in fact, we're now on board with Pasti as he's making a move down the inside of the 911 for P3, and he does make it. It's a pretty easy move right there in the Toyota Supra. He's going to have absolutely insane top speed as we head onto the home straight. At the end of lap 1, we have Alpha Zad clinging onto his bomb. Now Hurricane he's already gained 1 position, the current World Driver Champion, and look at the slipstream that Hurricane's getting on Alpha Zad. Unfortunately, he's not really able to do anything. I'm going to actually stay on board with O'Leary J. It seems like he's the driver who's most likely to make a move down into turn 3. No, instead he's actually almost been overtaken by X Allen. I don't know how, but he somehow holds on to the position there. Unfortunately, like O'Leary's livery hasn't actually loaded in there, because when I panned over to him it said that he's got a blue Mercedes AMG. But anyway, I don't think all of the liveries have loaded in, but who cares when Tap is making a move on his fellow US driver, X Allen, and there's a bit of an incident there. Hang on a minute, whoa! Tap goes down the inside of the other American driver, X Allen, gains about 2 positions as Regnix goes insanely deep into turn 5. And then O'Leary, trying to go back onto the track, ends up clipping the front tyre of Tap. And look at that, O'Leary's just lost another position to Regnix now. He's all the way down to P6. Regnix now P5, Tap P4. Of course, Tap, I mean, not doing too well at the moment. Actually P10 in the Drivers' Championship. He had a pretty bad week 3 and week 4, unfortunately. So, what was that? It was Suzuka and Daytona. 2 very tricky circuits, especially for the Chevrolet. Actually, Daytona, not very good top speed, the old Chevrolet Corvette. Anyway, I am quickly going to focus on the top 3 drivers, but there's not really much drama going on. Alpha Zad leading the race by a massive margin right now over Hurricane. Of course, I'm going to say it again, the current world driver's leader of the WDC. And Basti right behind in the 911. Seems like a pretty chill race for those top 3 drivers. No, instead I'm going to be focusing on Tap for this battle for P4 Regnix in the Golf livery 911. He did say that he had a Golf livery. He's trying to make a move down into that left-hand 90-degree uphill corkscrew left-hander, but unfortunately he's not able to make it. Very conservative driving there by Regnix. In Tier 1 you would have definitely have seen a dive bomb or 2. Instead he's going to try and go down the inside of this very tricky off-camber right-hander. It doesn't matter, because he still holds on to the position, and yeah, Tap gets a better exit, but look at the difference in straight line speed between the Chevrolet Corvette and the Porsche 911. I say that, but it seems like the Chevrolet Corvette has kind of carried it to be neck and neck down the straight. Obviously behind we have O'Leary, who is, well, he's holding on to his P6 quite well. We will be on board with O'Leary's AMG as we watch Regnix and Tap go side by side into the head of that really long straight. And once again, extremely conservative driving. It appears like Leary basically let through the Lexus of X Allen into P6. And right now, apologies for the changing in camera angle. It seems like the only battle is the battle for P4. Regnix right behind Tap through the S's of Sector 3. Tap is really holding on to that position very well. I'm going to say it again, very safe driving from most of the drivers here in Tier 3. They don't want to cause a collision, and I love to see it. And once again, it's a pretty easy move down the inside there in the 911 of Regnix. Regnix, of course, is currently sitting, well, all the way down in P6 actually in the championship. He did miss week 2 Brands Hatch, which probably explains why he's so low down, even though he's performing so well today, as Alpha Zad pops the fastest lap by quite a margin, and it seems like Alpha Zad is just gaining on the position. In the bottom right hand corner you can see the track map, and well, it's actually it doesn't matter. You can see the track map, and you can see that Alpha Zad has got a healthy lead over the rest of the competition. So I think we're going to stick with this battle for P4. X Allen, he's had a pretty difficult race. He's tried to overtake. He's going to go for the exact same move down the inside of Tap. This time he does get it. The Lexus going for a bit of a late break down the inside of, I don't know what turn it is, turn 3 it actually is. And this time it seems successful, and that has actually kind of made Tap lose his line maybe a little slightly, is a good way to describe it, because he's lost quite a bit of time, and once again he's lost time. Completely missing the apex of that 90-degree right-hander. He's got the AMG of O'Leary right on his rear through the S's, which is an area of the track where you should see the lightness of the Chevrolet Corvette helping it out quite a bit. But no, still no overtake there from O'Leary. Very, very safe and conservative driving indeed from all of the racers up and down the pack. And unfortunately, I haven't really followed the drivers at the, midfield very much at all, but well, unfortunately there hasn't been too close racing between them. The closest racing has definitely been this battle for P4 between X Allen, the 911 of Regnix, and Tap and O'Leary, of course, in P6 and P7. At the moment, no position has changed for a little while, about half a lap. Although, to be fair, it must be said that X Allen has actually got, well, he's a pretty good lap right now. He's right on the back of Regnix here on towards the end of lap 3. Of course, it's an 8-lap race here. It's actually a 15-minute sprint, this sprint race of ALR. We do a 10-minute qualifying, then a 15-minute sprint, then we reverse the grid of the 15-minute sprint to do a 40-minute feature race. Of course, this race was actually recorded on Monday. I'm commentating on Thursday, so that all of you, ladies and gentlemen, can watch live, as opposed to having to watch the commentary after the race. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that I've already done this race, and I've already calculated how long it takes to finish the 15-minute sprint, and it's exactly 8 laps, as O'Leary is being overtaken by Tap there. Tap ends up seizing the P6. I'm pretty sure it was in P6 before then. I'm not too sure whether O'Leary tried to go for a move, but this time he's left a lot of space there to Tap on the inside. Very safe driving indeed, and it's meant that Tap is able to actually hold the position through the Sector 3 S's. and I reckon that the Corvette is going to be able to pull out a healthy lead. It's such a light car, it really is amazing in these low to medium speed corners. It's really able to just throw in the rear end. It's got quite a bit of oversteer as well, the Chevrolet, which, well, Tap has had no difficulty in dealing with so far. I must admit, I haven't seen him spin out once yet. As we are going to pan up to the leader of the race, Alfa Zad, representing Germany right now. He's absolutely popping off, may I say. He's currently P5 in the championship, 86 points. That's only about 20 points behind the leader. Of course, the leader being Hurricane, who had a pretty bad feature race around Suzuka last week. Of course, if you want to catch any of that action, then you can do on the ALR YouTube channel. Of course, that commentary would have been done by another commentator. We've already gone through this, ladies and gentlemen. But Hurricane, if he finishes in P2 right now, actually, he's going to get a healthy dose of points. And it does mean he is actually going to hold on to P1 in the championship. Because the man who's right behind him, Pasty 87, he's only 7 points behind him, ladies and gents, in the championship. He's actually tied on points with the man in P3, Ian, who I'm not actually too sure whether Ian is racing today. But I can't seem to pick out his NID in the race. Obviously, any of you viewers, please let me know if actually he's called something differently on his Gran Turismo name as opposed to his online ID. Ian is ex-Alan. Okay, that makes sense, ladies and gents. So the man who is currently in P3 of the championship, tied with Pesty, is ex-Alan, representing the USA. It's going to be a little bit of a tricky race there for Alan, actually, because he's going to lose about 4, 5, 6, 7 points to Pasty, and, well, it's incredibly close in the championship. Far closer than Tier 1, put it that way. I say far closer than Tier 1. I'm not going to talk about Tier 1. It's actually a pretty close championship. But, of course, all eyes are on. I mean, I say all eyes are on. I really haven't focused enough on the man who is absolutely tearing up the track right now, and that's Alfa Zad. He's leading now by a healthy lead of about, I don't know, about 6-7 seconds. For some reason, the live timings have glitched out a little bit. It's not actually giving me live delta between each driver on the track right now. So I'm just going to have to guess how much of a lead Alfa Zad has, but it's a healthy one indeed. Obviously, in P1, he's currently P5 in the championship. He's going to gain a lot of points after this race. Now, at the moment, there isn't really much of a battle going on between anybody on track. Now, you're probably thinking, what do you mean, sick boy? We've got a battle between O'Leary J and Tap right now for P6. They've been side by side for almost the entire race right now, as we're about to go on to lap 5 of 8. I say lap 5 of 8. What am I talking about, guys? This is actually going to be lap 5 of 5. I don't know what I'm talking about sometimes. But it appears to me like there's only going to be 5 laps on this race. 3 minutes a lap, it makes sense. O'Leary J, right behind Tap. He's not got long left if there is 5 laps to overtake Tap. We've got about 1 minute 30 seconds left in this race, so absolutely there's only 1 lap left. And yeah, not too much to follow right now, of course. Alfa Zad dominating. Hurricane, he's had quite a quiet race, actually. Both Mazda RX Visions have had quite a quiet race at the front of the grid. Pasty in the, I believe that is the Toyota Concept. He actually goes a little bit wide, a little bit squirrely around the final corner. He's on softs, and it seems like he's suffering quite a bit of tyre wear in the front left. In fact, he's suffering major tyre wear. Look at the difference in tyre wear between the Toyota of Pasty and the 911 of Regnix. Is a massive difference. As ex-Alan tries to go down the inside of Pasty into turn 2, and he goes a little bit too deep right now. Pasty's easily going to be able to get that switch back, and he's so squibbly outside the exit of turn 3. He actually loses 2 positions, ladies and gentlemen, as Regnix takes P4 of the Lexus of ex-Alan. Of course, the man currently in P3 of the championship. How many times have I said that? He's actually joined P2 with Pasty. They're both tied on points, 7 points behind Hurricane, the current championship leader, as Regnix tries to go for a move down the inside of Pasty in turn 4. Very slow corner, the off-camber turn 4, over 90 degrees. But it doesn't matter. Pasty obviously likes the corner. He was able to keep his position quite well, and I must notice, Pasti is quite squirrely now outside of almost every corner on track. He is really suffering from severe tyre wear. Man, I'm not too sure whether Pasti is... Once again, ladies and gentlemen, he goes completely off the track and ends up getting 2 wheels on the grass. And it seems like Regnix is able to get a better run into, well, both 90-degree left-handers before that downhill zigzag S's before, obviously, that massive long straight. I was about to say Regnix might try and go for a bit of a slipstream on Pasti, but that's been destroyed, ladies and gentlemen. Zex Allen in a Lexus goes down the inside of Tap and of Regnix, unfortunately. And my apologies, sorry, not unfortunately. Regnix down to P5, Allen up to P4. And we'll see whether any driver, in fact, it is Pasti. Ladies and gents, Pasti's got a puncture, or at least he's got 0% tyre wear, or at least he's had a terrible incident through the downhill S's of Sector 2, and it's meant he lost a mega amount of time to Regnix, but it doesn't matter because X Allen's now side by side with Regnix once again into this uphill corkscrew left-hander. X Allen leaving Regnix. Barely any room, ladies and gentlemen. Regnix gets a crazy amount of oversteer, pushed right up to the barrier on the exit of that left-hander. And look at that, you can hear the tyres squealing of almost every car on grid, but I tell you what, X Allen is going to have a far better time in dealing with his tyre wear than Pasti. Real quick, I am going in a moment to pan over to Alpha Sad as he almost is about to cross the line and take P1. Look at this, Regnix, he wants P4 on the final lap of the race right now. We're heading into Sector 3, only a few corners to go in the sprint race of round 5 here in ALR Season 10. And Regnix incredibly late on the brakes. Oh, down the inside of Pasti, and there's contact between the two drivers. Pasti is bumped to the outside of the track, and now he's going side by side with Allen for P5. Pasti just a moment ago was almost guaranteed a podium. Remember, Pasti has got incredibly severe tyre wear, and both drivers are pushed onto the grass right now. They both lose a crazy amount of time, but it looks like Pasti is just about to cling on to P4, but he gets a penalty. 1 second time penalty for Pasti, I guess, for abusing track limits, although it seemed like both drivers went off the track about the same level. Well, that's his fate sealed there, old Pasti. It means that Allen is going to end up getting P4 as Alphazad crosses the line in P1. Hurricane, leader of the World Drivers' Championship, extends his lead on Pasti with P2. Regnix, well, at the end there, it was a quiet race for Regnix as he just watched every other driver pick each other off. Pasti crosses the line in P4, but he loses loads of positions. X Allen actually gets P4, Pasti P5, Tap P6. Ross Storm is a Chevrolet Corvette teammate. Wow, he really does make up a lot of positions. I apologise for not following Ross Storm. Of course, he broke extremely late in corner 2 of lap 1. He ended up all the way down in P14, I believe. I think he's ended up crawling back 7 positions. He now finishes in P7. And Vidvir in P8. And then the rest of the drivers are not really able to follow. Unfortunately, the time's run out. Right, I'm back after that tiny little short break after the end of the sprint race here in round 5 of season 10 of ALR. And that was an absolutely insane last lap, as Pasti says in the comments. Yeah, absolutely indeed. Crazy side-by-side battle between the 3 drivers for P4. I mean, absolutely insane. Of course, the finishing results were Alphazad in P1 and then his teammate, the leader of the Drivers' Championship, Hurricane, in P2. P3 was Regnix. P4, Allen. Only because Pasti ends up getting a penalty there. Pops P5 and he is in the VGT Toyota. And then... very interesting indeed. Yeah, I'm going to scroll over to the feature race, which will only take a moment. Now, of course, as always, I haven't watched the race results. I know that, of course, as I'm going to say again, the race actually happened on Monday. We haven't been able to commentate until Thursday. But, of course, I'm not going to cheat. I'm not going to check the results of the race. That was edge of your seat stuff right at the end there, side by side between 2 drivers, round the S's of Sector 3. Man, it really was crazy stuff. It really was. And I am back, everybody. Right, hang on.
Start again now.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am back from that short delay. As a couple of people leaving, but it's okay. I'm sure they'll be back. I was gone for quite a while between the two races. Of course, crazy sprint race just happened right there. Of course, it's the start of the feature, reverse grids. Now it's a 40-minute feature. We had 5 laps for the about 4.5 laps for the sprint. We're probably going to be looking at about 15 laps for this feature race, so it's going to be extremely exciting. We have obviously reverse grids. The man who started at the very back of the grid, unfortunately for the first race, is now at the front, Auto Ratillon, and then we've got Gin Tonics, Whack, Jamps, Major XTC, Polty, O'Leary, Vidveer, Rostorm, Tap, Pasty, Allen, Regnix, Hurricane, and Alpha Zad, who put in a dominating performance during that sprint race that we only just commentated a moment ago. Well, it doesn't matter because he's now starting at the back of the grid, as with all of our leaders. Instead, we're forgetting about the sprint race. It's now time for the feature. And it's a pretty slow start there for the AMG user of Auto Ratillon in P1. In fact, it's a pretty calm start for most of the drivers. Major XTC not getting a pretty good result in the sprint race. He's going to try and go down the inside of Whack Jamps in the Renault RS01, but he's not able to. Instead, he ends up getting such a bad exit out turn 2 there. Polty in the 911, the Golf livery has loaded this time. Polty in the 911 is instead going to be going side by side with the AMG at Major XTC into turn 3. This is going to be interesting, but look at that. The lack of straight line speed there on the 911 means that XTC is able to pretty much gain, a healthy lead on Polty. I say that, XTC gets a terrible squirrely exit out of turn 3. And it doesn't matter because he glues himself onto the inside line of turn 5 and he ends up sticking with the P4. He ends up holding on to the P4 for another couple of corners. Now this is going to be a long race, ladies and gentlemen, but anything can happen at the very start here. Hurricane already overtaken a load of drivers all the way up into P8. I can't believe I missed his start there. Well, he is stuck behind X Allen right now. X Allen, of course, ended up finishing behind Hurricane. Hurricane finished P4. He ended up starting right at the back of the grid with his with his Mazda RX Vision teammate, Alpha Zad, who, to be honest, is carving through the field just as fast as his teammate Hurricane. as X Allen goes a little bit wide there through sector 1, ends up getting 2 wheels on the gravel, and ends up losing quite a bit of time there. Hurricane overtakes him for P7. AlphaZad in the Mazda RX Vision has to brake a little bit through the downhill S's of sector 2 right onto this massive back straight. He ends up clipping the inside of Ross Thorm, and Ross Thorm ends up getting into a bit of an incident there. It's actually quite a major incident, all the way back into last place again, pretty much last place. There was some sort of incident with O'Leary J, of course. Now his livery has loaded in. O'Leary J hung onto P5 in the end, I believe it was, or P4 actually. Ended up beating Tab right at the very end there, having a massive side-by-side battle. And AlphaZad, ladies and gentlemen, I'm actually going to do what I never do. I'm going to rewind the race. AlphaZad was in P9. He ends up going extremely deep into the corner straight after the back straight, and I'm going to rewind that again, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely major incident, because AlphaZad is the man who won the sprint race, ended up starting at the back of the grid for the feature. Of course, he's competing for the Drivers' Championship. He's maybe down in P5, but I think he's got a good chance of winning anything. He goes really deep into the corner there and ends up hitting into the back of X Allen. X Allen ends up getting into an incident. AlphaZad hits into the back of X Allen. AlphaZad completely loses the rear end of the car. And now look at him, he's doing a 180 spin now to join the track, and he's right at the back of the grid. Quite significant loss there by AlphaZad. Let's see if he's able to, well, he started at the back of the grid and he ended up gaining about 9 positions at the start of the race. Let's see if he's able to gain that again, as he's all over the place. He's got severe damage to the front and rear fenders of the car. He's got no downforce at all. He's banging into all of the walls. He's losing even more time. And O'Leary, I think he got caught up in some sort of incident. He's now at the back of the grid. And Ultra Tillon, the man who started the feature race at the start of the grid because he finished the sprint race dead last, is unfortunately, as Regnix gets punted off the track at the hair after the back straight. I can't believe it. This is so many incidents at the start of this race. It's really shaking everything up. I was about to say Ross Thorm also gets into an incident and spins out at the first lap of the feature. He's now almost at the back of the grid, but now he's all the way up into P11 because of how so many drivers have crashed or been punted off. What I was going to say is Ross Thorm, of course, ended up crashing at the very beginning of the sprint and ended up finishing in P7. So let's see if he can regain all of those positions just like he did only a short few moments ago. Ultra Tillon, the man who started at the front of the grid for the sprint race, somehow he's all the way down into P10. Probably caught up in an incident of some sort, or maybe a spin. Pasty 87, only 7 points. Well, a few more points now that he finished P5, I believe, in the sprint, whilst the man who is currently leading the championship. Well, hang on a minute, bit of a crash there by Ultra Tillon again. He loses a position to Ross Thorm into turn 2. But yeah, Pasty only 7 points behind P1. Now he's going to be maybe about 13, 14 points behind P1. He lost a couple of positions to the man who is obviously battling, Hurricane, in the MX RX Vision. Currently leading the championship and clearly using traction control as well, as we can see by his inputs at the bottom of the screen. Hurricane, though, has easily been able to catch up with the front few drivers of the race. Of course, we've got a bit of a battle happening for P2 right here. Major XTC, who finished the sprint quite low down the grid, ends up starting the feature quite high up the grid. Well, he's holding a few drivers up here. I'm not too sure if he's the bottleneck that is holding back Whack Jamps and Pulte, or whether they're all kind of fuel saving or all keeping up with each other's pace. But regardless, maybe Hurricane is just on fire right now as he catches up to the front 3 drivers extremely quickly. Now, of course, I say front 3, but actually the man who's leading the pack by a margin right now is Jin Tons, representing Germany right now. He's well, I'm not quite sure where he is on the Drivers' Championship. As I quickly check the standings once again, put into the comments, shoot me a message if his online ID is any different, just like how X Allen is actually the man in P3L, Ian. And of course, X Allen, well, since he is tied on points, well, he was at least heading into the round 5, he was tied on points with Pulte. He actually finished behind Pulte during the sprint, so now Pulte is firmly in P2 of the championship, and even further ahead of him. Sorry, not Pulte, Patsy. says right at the front. Oh yeah, Gin Tonics. He's right there. Right. Anyway, yeah. So Patsy, sorry, is obviously the driver who is battling. He's actually in the Toyota VGT, battling for P1 of the championship. I don't think many drivers are going to be overtaking Hurricane in the championship after this round, though. Hurricane firmly in P3. He's overtaken Pulte. And now he's got his eyes set on XTC. He wants to try and get P2. Yeah, it seems like a pretty easy drive there for both of the drivers in Mazda RX Vision, in fact. Very strong performances by both. I do say that, though. Of course, the driver who won the sprint race only moments ago, Al-Fazad, he's all the way down in P12. P13, in fact. Now, of course, if you didn't catch that, if you rewind, not sure if you're able to rewind on this live stream, but regardless, only a few laps ago, literally 1 lap ago, man, Croix is an incredibly long track. What is it, about 3-minute 30 lap time around here? Only last lap was Al-Fazad putting in a pretty valiant effort right behind his Mazda RX Vision teammate when he was caught up in a major incident and ended up falling all the way down into P13. Very difficult race for him. Of course, right now he's sitting, well, on my standings, which is of course from last week. Al-Fazad's sitting in P5, but barely a gap between him and the man in P4, M. Pulte, so he's almost certainly in P4 right now in the Drivers' Championship. Of course, only a handful of points. What is that, about 18 points separating the top 5 drivers here. Of course, P2 and P3 in the championship were tied. Patsy and L. Ian both on 97 points, only 7 points behind. I'm going to say it again. Hurricane, the man who is currently leading the Drivers' Championship and is leading the championship by an even greater margin, came P2 in the sprint and is now, well, he's now actually got 2 wheels in the gravel through Sector 1, but he's now in P2 in the feature. We're about a third of the way into lap 3 of, I estimate, approximately 14 or 13 laps, I would say, around Croix. It'll be interesting to see what strategy, what strategies each of the different drivers go through. I remember when I had to race this race on Monday, I did go for the 1 stop, I'm pretty sure. I went for the regular medium soft, but it took an amazing amount of fuel saving. It really was, well, I lost an immense amount of time fuel saving, put it that way. It was one of my worst performances ever. But enough about me. I want to see whether any of these drivers here in Tier 3 are going to try and go for the 1 stop. It is going to require an immense amount of fuel saving, though. So it will be interesting to see, anyway, if anybody does decide to go for the 1 stop. It is quite a long, quite a long pit stop here in Croix. They're going to lose a lot of time going for the 2 stop. Of course, they're going to gain it on the softs. Anyway. L. Ian, the man currently, I would say now, P4 in the championship. Well, he's P6 right now, right behind Tap in the Chevrolet Corvette. Tap and Ross Storm, of course, finishing P6 and P7 in the Chevrolet Corvette. Pretty strong performance in the Chevrolet Corvette. Currently 6th in the championship with 92 points, only 7 points behind Toyota VGT. Let's see if Alan is able to make a move. Interestingly, he's not actually following into the slipstream of Tap into the hairpin, which dictates the gap between Sector 2 and Sector 3 right after this back straight. He isn't able to make the move. Unfortunately, I think that Alan was a little bit too early to move outside of the slipstream of Tap. And of course, the driver who has just appeared into my POV right there is actually Vidveer. We haven't followed Vidveer very much at all over these last couple of races. This race weekend, around Croix, round 5 of Season 10. Have I mentioned that? But he in a pretty good effort in the sprint race. I'm pretty sure he finished P8. Started middle of the pack on this feature. Gained a couple of positions. Well, he's now battling for P5 behind Alan and Tap, as both drivers end up getting into an incident, and in fact Alan's completely turned around. The man who's currently performing the Drivers' Championship completely turned around after an incident between him and Tap. I am going to do it again, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to rewind and do an instant replay. We're on board with Alan right now. He goes for a move down the inside of Tap and ends up braking a little bit too late, hits the back of Tap, doesn't move down the inside of Tap earlier enough. That ends up screwing up with his turning radius. He ends up hitting the inside barrier. Well, that ends up making him hit Tap. Tap hits the wall, spins around, clips the back wheel of Alan, and Alan ends up in the barriers, and Tap does end up losing, well, maybe about 3 or 4 seconds. He loses a couple of positions. The RS01 of Whack Jumps ends up overtaking him, and so does the Lexus RCF of Avir, all the way up in P5 right now. Yeah, very convenient being able to catch that incident, as Hurricane is catching up as he just sets the fastest second sector half a second ahead of the fastest lap. Of course, the fastest lap being owned by the other Mazda RX Vision driver, Alpha Zad, who had a terrible incident on lap 1 and is, well, last time I checked he was in about P13. Yeah, he's in the same position right now. Yeah, indeed, that was a very very interesting move there between Tap and X-Alan. I'm not sure what happened there, but it seems like X-Alan has lost another 2 or 3 positions. Last time I checked he was in P7, just ahead of Tap, or maybe even P8. No, he ends up losing quite a few positions right there. He's all the way in P10. I think that was the same incident. I do apologise. Vidveer picked up a 1 second time penalty, I presume for track limit violations through the Sector 2 S's. Whack Jams really struggling to get any sort of slipstream on Vidveer in the Renault RS01. The Renault's a tricky car. It's got incredible downforce, very good grip, but it really does struggle in a straight line. One of the worst cars for top speed in Group 3 ever since the latest update. Meanwhile, the Lexus actually has very respectable top speed and very good brakes as well, one of the best braking cars in the game. Not like that's going to help with Veer at all, because he's about to have to slam on the brakes for a second to serve his time penalty, and an incredible braking system is the last thing that you want when you've got a penalty to serve, and especially on such a long back straight as this. It means not only has he lost the position to Tap and Whack Champs, Ross Storm is able to overtake him right at the end of the home straight. Vidveer, interestingly, not going to be going for the move down the inside of Ross Storm. He's just going to allow Ross Storm to take him the position, the P7 of Vidveer. He's all the way down to P8 right now. Now, the closest paddle right now, look at that. Whack Jams and Tap both battling for P5. And of course, well, I did say in the sprint, of course, that the Chevrolet Corvette has got insane grip and insane well, traction through these medium speed corners because of how lightweight the chassis is of the Chevrolet Corvette. But I'm pretty sure the Renault RS01 is an even better car for cornering potential. But it doesn't seem to be working too well for Whack Champs, as he's really struggling to overtake Tap there, and Tap's just going to be able to pull out quite a considerable margin on Whack Champs into turn 1. Major XTC, of course, the man who has been, well, in the top 5, I'd say, of drivers for the entire feature race so far. Of course, we're only 5 laps in. We're only just about on the margin of the end of the sprint race. Major XTC, right behind Pulte right now. Pulte in the Porsche 911. And, well, although it's a very heavy car, well, that just means one thing. It's got a lot of inertia down the straights, especially once it gets to slipstream. The AMG is able to rack up a serious top speed. But it's not enough for Pulte there. Like I say, extremely safe driving by pretty much everybody in this tier. You wouldn't see that in tier 1, put it that way. You would have a dive bomb for sure. I wouldn't even call that a dive bomb. I thought it was a pretty easy setup for a very clean overtake by XTC down the inside of Pulte. But interestingly, he has not decided to make the move. Gin Tonics, the man who has led the race pretty much since lap 1. After there must have been an incident or something with Auto Rotillion, who started P1 But alas, Gin Tonics has unfortunately lost his P1 position to Hurricane. Interestingly, both drivers are on the softs right there. It seems like Hurricane has just got so much more grip. But yeah, he's in P1 at the moment. He finished P2 in the sprint behind Alfazad, and he's current leader of the championship. And he's going to be extending his lead by quite a considerable margin actually after this, if he can hold on to his P1. Because the man who is right behind him in P2, Pulte, and the man who's tying Pulte on points, at least as far as last week, X-Allen. Well, X-Allen's all the way in P10, right behind this train. It's a little bit of a transforming from P6 right there. But yeah, Pulte in P3. Although he's about to overtake Gin Tonics. Maybe he's not. Maybe we should instead go on board with, well, any of the drivers who are trying to make an overtake into the 90-degree left-hander uphill corkscrew after the back straight. Well, for fear, he tries to make a move on Rossom in a Chevrolet Corvette. He's not able to. Rossom ends up pulling out a greater lead. Whack Jamps in P8 also. Well, doesn't try and make a move, and instead a move. In fact, Whack Jamps ends up going incredibly wide, gets a crazy amount of understeer through that downhill, really long, I don't know, 160-degree right-hander, and it means that he hits the barrier. Not only that, he's got damage to the front left of his car, and he's suffering all the way down the straight. Look at that, he ends up losing about 4 positions there. He's all the way down to P10. Yeah, very heartbreaking off from Whack Jamps. He's put in a valiant effort so far. I do hope that he gains a few positions. Didn't do too well in the sprint, I presume, because I didn't cover his race at all in the sprint. But that's good for O'Leary and for X-Allen. I believe it was actually him and O'Leary who were going side by side into the 160-degree right-hander, and it meant well, what happened is that I believe Whack Jamps ended up being on the inside of that turn, braking extremely late, getting understeer and hitting the outside wall. So yeah, interesting move there by O'Leary J. I'd say it's pretty clean. Yeah, very interesting right now happening for yeah, P2. I thought there was going to be a battle for P2 there between Pulte and Gin Tonics. It looked like it was going to be a pretty easy overtake for Pulte there. He was right on the rear bumper of Gin Tonics only a few laps ago. Not able to make a move. Instead, Gin Tonics ends up pulling out a gap. Absolutely no drama going on between the top 5 or 6 drivers now. In fact, even this train for P6 has ended up spreading out quite a considerable margin. The closest driver is X-Allen, of course, representing the USA. He tries to make a move on O'Leary. In fact, he does make a move on O'Leary. O'Leary goes incredibly deep, ends up getting a crazy amount of oversteer, almost hits the exterior barrier round turn 2, and that means that X-Allen in the Lexus, well, let's see if he's able to make a move down the inside of O'Leary into turn 3. Interestingly, he's not actually going into the slipstream of O'Leary. I guess he's confident with his speed. He ends up braking earlier than O'Leary, but he does get the inside line, and this corner is quite off camber. You want to glue yourself to the inside line in order to get as much traction as possible. X-Allen, it looks like he's sealed the deal, but it seems like O'Leary is able to actually brake later than X-Allen into the left-hander, 90-degree left-hander. Obviously flat right here into a pretty tricky double apex right-hander. And it seems like X-Allen has pretty firmly got that P7 line. Now, of course, I forgot to mention, somebody ends up entering the pits. I believe it was maybe it was Regnix. I didn't quite check. Why don't I just check the... there we go. It was actually Tap. My apologies. Tap in the Chevrolet Corvette. First driver to pit. He did start on medium tyres. Ends up pitting before half of the drivers have pitted on softs, ladies and gentlemen. So Tap starts on mediums. He ends up pitting on at the end of lap 5 onto a fresh set of softs. But at the front of the grid, we've got... Well, not just at the front of the grid. We've got half the grid right now are using softs that are still... You know, softs right from the start of the race. Hurricane right now, well, he's almost fully worn his front left tyre, but it doesn't seem to be affecting his pace right now. Last lap, 3:33. It was actually quite slow, but still faster than half the pack. As we go back only one position, it's battle for P2 right now. Gin Tonics, the man who has led this race for a considerable margin and has held on to P2 for pretty much the whole race, has finally let go of P2. Pulte, I say that, but he ends up getting a better exit than Pulte outside of that 160-degree right-hander. But it doesn't matter because Pulte ends up getting a crazy bump draft there by Major XTC. Gin Tonics is going to be absolutely furious with XTC after that. It looked like Gin Tonics had sealed the deal, but look at the straight line speed of the Toyota VGT. Is he going to be able to make the move on Gin Tonics, or is Polty going to brake later down the inside? And Polty does brake later down the inside. Both drivers are going side by side right now. They make a slight bit of contact, but Polty is able to get that P2 quite easily. We're now 20 minutes into this feature race, exactly halfway through. 6 laps done, I would say probably about 5 laps to go. About 11 or 12, maybe 13 laps in this feature race in total. As Polty ends up gaining P2. That's the most recent thing that we've just covered on the commentary for those who are just filtering in right now. Gin Tonics in P3. Just lost the position, of course. He is absolutely fried right now on those softs. No wonder why he lost the position to Polty. Polty on the mediums is going to be having an immense amount of grip compared to Gin Tonics. And we might as well watch Hurricane enter the pits. I will be incredibly surprised if he doesn't enter the pits this lap. There we go, he's into the pits. And it's going to be very interesting to see what tyres all of these drivers go on. Polty, interestingly, also enters the pits on mediums, and so does Major XTC. Of course, Gin Tonics does. I believe he got a puncture right at the very end there. If you look in the front left-hand wheel, it looks like it's got barely any grip at all. He may have gotten a crazy understeer through the S's. Pretty much every driver on the grid right now entering the pits. But look at the amount of fuel saving that Vidveer and X Allen have been able to do. So much compared to, Major XTC. Fuel. They're all going to be refueling, I would imagine, up to about 100%, considering that we're about halfway through the race. There we go, Hurricane does basically fill up to 100%. Who's out of the pits first? It's actually Polty. Polty ends up jumping Hurricane. He ends up under-fueling the car. Well, very slightly. I don't know how that's happened, because Hurricane had the lead by about 5 or 6 seconds. I don't know what's just happened, but Polty ends up gaining the lead of the race. Both drivers now on fresh tyres, but Polty's on the softs, of course, Hurricane on the mediums. It'll be interesting to see if they decide to go for a soft medium. I would imagine they are going for the soft medium, considering that they've pit about halfway through the race. Very interesting. Now Polty's going to have the grip advantage for, I would say, maybe the next 4 or 5 laps. Of course, he's really going to be struggling at the end there. I say that, but Polty already ends up going deep on his first lap on softs, and Hurricane's able to gain back a few tenths. Wait, hang on a minute, a bit of an incident here happening between Gin Tonics, Vidveer and Major XTC. I don't know what happened, and I'm not going to rewind it, but it looked like a bit of contact. Gin Tonics ends up getting a squiggly rear and ends up, well, losing quite a bit of time right there. Loses a couple of positions, in fact. Interestingly, X Allen actually gains positions in the pits. I said that he had lost a load of fuel and had to refuel by quite a significant margin. He actually ends up gaining 3 positions. Vidveer, of course, was the driver who entered the pits with the most amount of fuel, or maybe X Allen had a lot of fuel. I know for a fact that Vidveer had an absolute load of fuel. Maybe it's Lexus for you, maybe it is a very fuel efficient car. But yeah, Vidveer ends up gaining quite a few positions now. He's all the way back up to P5. He was in P5 early on in the race. He ended up getting caught up in an incident. I believe he goes down to maybe P8 or P9. He's back up to P5. Right, Jamps there having a bit of an incident through the S's of Sector 2, losing a bit of time. Past the 87, the driver who was in P2 of the championship, tied on points with X Allen. Well, he's not going to be tied on points with X Allen anymore. He's all the way down into P11 right now. He's only going to be getting a handful of points, if that. If he can even hold P11 together right now for the next, I don't know, 4 or 5 laps, for the next 15 minutes, I know that for a fact. Yeah, not a good position there for Pasty. He's going to be losing a considerable amount of points to X Allen, and at the moment it seems like X Allen is only going to lose a handful of points to Hurricane. So this battle for P1 really is going to continue going. Of course, X Allen only, what would you say, about 7, 8 or 9 points once you factor in the sprint race. Only a handful of points anyway behind Hurricane and P2. Maybe Hurricane is going to be struggling to hold on to that P2 though, because of course he's on the mediums, Polty's on the softs. Polty's been able to pull out maybe about 2.5-3 seconds, and it means that Tap, the driver who pit very early on, if you remember, he was on the mediums, he pits onto the softs before even the drivers who were on the softs pit onto the mediums, so he undercuts the whole pack. Well, he's all the way up into P3, ladies and gentlemen, right on the back of Hurricane. Of course he's going to have a significant grip advantage. Well, it'll be interesting to see whether he's able to overtake Hurricane within the next couple of laps. Yeah, not much of a battle happening right now, really, up and down the pack at all. Not really much of a battle happening. I say that, Tap tries to make a move, well, I would say down the inside of Hurricane. I'm not too sure whether he tried to make a move on Hurricane at all. He ends up just kissing his bumper into turn 2 and ends up losing, well, I would say about a second and a half on Hurricane. Ends up pulling out quite a significant margin. In fact, Hurricane is actually catching up to Pulte right now. It was, what would you say, about 2.5 / 3 seconds, I said. Only half a lap ago was Pulte. Well, now he's maybe a second and a half in front of Hurricane. Not really much of a battle happening up and down the race, so I think this is the perfect opportunity to do what I do with all of my commentaries. I spend a few minutes in silence to just kind of really appreciate the sound of the engines, and you can appreciate the race with no commentary in the background. A little bit of a relaxing segment, and it also means that I can rest my voice after talking for, I don't know, about 40-50 minutes straight right now. It'll be good to get a few minutes of rest. I'm still going to flick through the cameras, but I'll be silent right now for the next few minutes as you appreciate the engine sounds that the Polyphony Digital developers have spent hours curating. And ladies and gentlemen, I am back. Of course, I was just gone for a moment there to rest my voice and so that you could appreciate the beautiful sounds of GT7. Of course, the only thing that happened whilst we were gone that you probably caught a glimpse of, Vidveer actually going wide on that uphill right-hander just before the home straight. He ends up losing a position to Allen, who is now up into P5. But apart from that, nothing much really going on at all. Pulte is still leading the race. Of course, he decides to go for the medium start, goes on to the softs. Hurricane started on the softs, is now on the mediums. Pulte has been able to pull out, I'd say, a tenth or two a lap on Hurricane ever since all of the drivers came in on lap 7, which seems so long ago. Man, these 3.5 minute lap times really are killing me. Such a long circuit to memorise. I found that when I was racing around this track, I genuinely didn't know Sector 1 because, you know, the Nürburgring Nordschleife is iconic. The Circuit de la Sarthe only has about 10 corners, but the third longest track in the game, Croix, well, it's, well, apart from Special Stage Route X, the third longest track in the game, Croix, is, well, it's just confusing, really. It's not iconic, it's not memorable, and it's super long. Maybe I'm just salty because I finished last in both the, well, I definitely finished last in the feature. Anyway, enough about me, enough about Tier 1, because we're commentating Tier 3. This is round 5 of Season 10. Have I mentioned that? I think I mentioned that. Of Aero League Racing. Of course, this race was recorded on Monday, but I'm now commentating on Thursday. How many other voice lines can I, pull up in my directory to fill the blank, empty, void space that is the 75% mark of a feature race? Of course, this is the moment where all the drivers spread out by a few seconds or more, and it just leads to a bit of a slow period in the commentary. We all start going a bit crazy. Autoratilon, I believe his PSN ID is. Unfortunately, and I know how he feels because I hate some Croix as well, he's had a very difficult couple of races. He finished last in the sprint, started first in the feature, got into either the spin or an incident quite early on, and he's actually been last now for pretty much the entire race. So my heart goes out to the Austrian driver because, hopefully he can get a pretty good result next week. But I think you, ladies and gentlemen, want me to instead follow a bit of drama happening. Hang on a minute, look at this, Gin Tonics and Patsy, or maybe it's Pasty. It definitely says Pasty on his PSN ID, Pasty87. Well, he ends up getting overtaken by Gin Tonics, ladies and gentlemen, who regained P9. Of course, Gin Tonics, for the longest time, had been battling for the lead of the race. Hang on a minute. Bit of an incident there between him and O'Leary J. He ends up going down the inside of O'Leary J. It looked like a bit of a side swipe, in my opinion, through these Sector 3 S's. And he ends up losing his position to Pasty. Once again, Pasty is in P9. I must admit, the drivers who were battling for the front of the pack, like Pasty and O'Leary J during the sprint, they're not doing very well in the feature, but we've got some extra drivers who weren't doing too well in the sprint, like Vidveer and Tap as well. Scored what a really good result in the sprint, but he's battling for a podium right now. He's actually on the back of Hurricane, the man who I've been touting as the driver who I think is going to win this race, the entire race. Well, he's actually not only in P2 right now, he's almost about to lose P2 to Tap and go down to P3. In fact, Tap does decide to go for the inside move, and, well, he doesn't make any contact with Hurricane, but I don't know what happened. Hurricane ended up losing a load of time. It wasn't even squirrely on the exit. It's like his traction control kicked in way too hard, and... oh, Pasty! Right, there we go. His traction control ended up kicking in too hard, and I don't know what happened there, but he ended up losing the position to Tap. I say that, though. But Tap ends up demonstrating the iconic rear wheel instability of the Chevrolet Corvette as he ends up losing a bit of time to Hurricane. Side by side battle right now. We're going into the third person POV right now, the chase cam. Both drivers have been swapping positions for most of the first sector right now. Of course, Tap ends up getting oversteer. Hurricane almost overtook him, but he wasn't able to overtake him, and now Tap is, well, he's pretty firmly in P2 now. I don't think that the RX Vision is going to be able to take the Chevrolet Corvette into the hairpin, but we shall see, unless he gets a far better exit, which it almost looks like he does, to be fair. Man, it's actually shaping up to be a pretty interesting race. We've only got 6 minutes to go. My apologies. 6 minutes to go, maybe about 5.5 minutes. I would say that is going to be about 2 laps, really. So I think we're going to have a 12-lap race in the feature. I don't want to get this wrong and end up calling the end of the race with about 30 seconds to go, because that's happened way too many times in the past. But of course, the driver who we're following the most at the moment is Hurricane. This battle for P2 between Hurricane and Tap is very interesting. Of course, Hurricane has either been leading the race or has been in P2 of the race for pretty much the entire race. He started almost at the back of the grid because he ended up finishing in P2 during the sprint. Now all of a sudden, though, because he's on mediums and everybody else is on softs, it looks like he's struggling to gain the middle step of the podium. He almost isn't able to overtake Tap into the hairpin at the end of the home straight, at the end of the back straight, actually. But he is. Hurricane ends up getting P2. Pretty clean overtake there by Hurricane, and, well, he gets a wheel on the grass. Maybe even 2 wheels on the grass there, does Hurricane, but... Wow, Tap is actually going to go down the inside of the Sector 3 S's and regain that position, regain the P2 of Hurricane. And, in fact, X-Allen, the man in P3 of the Drivers' Championship, is now going to try and overtake Hurricane. This is going to be a tight battle for P1 of the Drivers' Championship. I thought that X-Allen was nowhere near P4. I have no idea why. Apologies to X-Allen. Turns out that this battle is actually going to be heating up right at the very end as we enter the penultimate lap. We've only got 4 minutes remaining. This is going to be the penultimate lap. 12 laps in total, ladies and gentlemen, for this feature race. And look at that. Hurricane and Tap neck and neck across the line. Hurricane ends up getting a better exit at the final corner. Bit of a slip as X-Allen bumps into the barrier. He's going to go down the inside of Tap, and all 3 drivers went side by side for a moment. It's a pretty clinical, pretty textbook inside overtake for X-Allen there. Overtakes Tap, gains P3, and I kind of feel sorry for Tap. Just a moment there, it looked pretty certain that he was going to get P2. He's all the way down to P4, ladies and gentlemen. A major XTC, only about a second behind all of these drivers. Wow, they really have lost a lot of time to the midfield, battling for the past maybe lap and a half, but here we go. That was very that lap and a half, but anyway. X-Allen, of course, we're not following Pulte at all. He's leading the race by, I don't know, about 7, 8, 9 seconds. He's absolutely smashed this strategy unless something crazy happens in the last couple of laps. It seems like Pulte has pretty much sealed and delivered this race win. Yeah, Pulte, very good on pace. He finished relatively well in the sprint. I think he came maybe P3 or P4 in the sprint as a Tap and well, in fact it was Allen and Hurricane were battling them for a moment. Hurricane retains its P2, but yeah, Pulte, very good race. Now of course the reason why Hurricane has been leading this race for almost the entire race up until lap 7 when every driver dove into the pits is because not only did Hurricane start on the sauce, but he also used a lot of fuel. He only had about 4% of fuel entering the pits, and he took a lot of time to refuel, and he lost quite a lot of time and maybe a position or 2 coming out of the pits. X-Allen, meanwhile, well, I think it's either that X-Allen is a genius in lifting and coasting and fuel economy, or his Lexus RCF is just one of the most fuel efficient cars in the game, because he came in with something like 25, something ridiculous like 25% fuel left in his car, and he was able to gain loads of positions. He gained about 4 or 5 positions coming out of the pits, and so did his fellow Lexus RCF user. I'm not sure if they're teammates, they don't have the same livery, but let's assume they are. Vidveer gained quite a few positions. That's another 1 second time penalty for track limits for Vidveer. He got that. Well, he got another one, maybe lap 2 or lap 3 at the start of the sprint. Yeah, now X-Allen has actually lost quite a bit of time now. I'm not sure whether he had a penalty, but Hurricane is firmly in P2. And, well, X-Allen has now lost P3 to Tap. X-Allen now in P4. And Ross Storm in P5. I'm not sure whether he made a move on major XTC. I think he might have. But the top 5 is shaken up quite a bit. Pasty still in P9. And Ross Storm in the chat saying that the Lexus is the best tank in the game. I did do a little bit of testing actually. I can't quite now, you know, whack up the Excel spreadsheet. But I did notice that the Lexus had one of the best fuel economies in the game. Amazing. Wildcard trick up any driver of the Lexus's sleeve right there, that fuel economy, because, well, the proof is right here. Both Allen and Vidveer both gained something like 4 or 5 positions apiece coming out of the pits. But of course we're on board with Allen right now in the Lexus. He's trying to overtake Tap. He's not going to overtake Tap. Tap glues himself to the inside apex and is able to seal the deal, retain his P3 position. Of course, this is now the final lap, ladies and gentlemen. As predicted, 12 laps in this feature race, 5 laps in the sprint, but of course we've had a pit stop. So we've lost a little bit of time, lost about a minute or so 12 laps, not 15, 12 laps in the feature race. 40-minute feature, we do a 15-minute sprint, Well, we actually do a 10-minute quali, then a 15-minute sprint, then we reversed grids for a 40-minute feature. And unfortunately, I don't think he will want me to mention it again, but Alpha Zad is the man who actually won the feature race, the sprint race, I'll have you know. And he ended up starting at the back of the grid of this feature, and he ends up overtaking loads of drivers at the very beginning. But he ends up getting caught up in an incident, and unfortunately he's been stuck in P13, I believe, for pretty much the entire race. I'm not sure what happened to Alpha Zad. He had so much pace in the sprint, I couldn't believe my eyes. He was a tier 1 driver, but yeah, he's not able to make it stick. Had a very, very unlucky feature race there, Alpha Zad. Wow, a bit of a questionable incident there between Tap and Alan. I'll just pretend that didn't happen. Tap goes down the inside of Alan, who at least attempts to, the first corner of the downhill sector 2S's, and he just ends up pretty much spinning Alan into the wall. Alan ends up losing the position. Of course, Hurricane firmly in P2 now, and do I even have to mention where Polte is? No, I don't. But yeah, Tap, Hurricane firmly in P2. Tap, it looks like he's pretty firmly in P3 there after that incident between him and Alan. And Ross Thorm has tried to go for a last-minute ditch attempt to gain P4 on Alan into that 90-degree uphill left-hander corkscrew after the back straight. He's not able to, though. He just does a Ross Thorm sprint race special, as I say. He did that in the sprint race, ended up losing about 7 or 8 positions. He brakes extremely late, ends up getting crazy understeer, and loses about a dozen or so seconds there. Definitely loses half a dozen seconds on Alan. But, and because of that, he ends up actually losing so much time that Vivir and Major, the 2 drivers who have been battling for P6 for a little while now. Vivir, very good race for Vivir. Wasn't able to see him very much at all during the sprint, but I've been commentating him quite a lot, alongside Major XTC. In the feature, well, they try and go for a move, they're going side by side. Vivir ends up getting P6 around the outside of the hairpin after the home straight, of the back straight. And Vivir is now eyeing up Ross Thorm. It seems like a bit of a bad decision now for Ross Thorm to go for that dive bomb on X Allen. Of course, final lap of the race, so nobody go right now because we're about to wrap this race right up. Of course, half of the drivers have already finished the race, and I will get to them in a moment. But Vivir in P6, is he going to make a last-ditch effort to gain P5 from Ross Thorm? This is probably the last overtake we could possibly see in this race. It doesn't seem like he's going to, and unfortunately... Unfortunately, Polte ends up crossing the line, and I think it ends up kind of glitching out the game a little bit. And, well, it ends up kicking me out from the race. So let's see what actually happened at the very end of this race, ladies and gents. To tell you what, this is why we don't often do, well, I've never done a post-race commentary like this using theatre mode. Oh dear, well let's see what happened with Polte. Look, I don't want to be on board with him as he crosses the line because I'll be booted again, but Polte ends up winning the race by a massive margin. Incredible race by Polte. He starts on the mediums and it ends up gaining him the advantage he needs over Hurricane, who did an insane race but didn't do very well on the... Oh dear, it's done it again, ladies and gentlemen. Hurricane ends up finishing P2, Tap ends up finishing P3, and then XL and P4, Ross Thorm P5, and... Vivir is not able to make that overtake on Ross Thorm for P5. He stays P6, Major XTC P7, O'Leary J P8. A bit of a difficult feature race there for O'Leary J. He had a really good sprint. Regnix in P9, Alpha Zad P10. Of course, it was such a tricky race for Alpha Zad, man. He got a very unlucky incident at the start, even though he won the sprint and was doing really well at the start of the feature. I believe there was an incident at the end there with Pasty, because the last time I checked, he was in about P9 or P8, and he ends up losing quite a few positions all the way down to about P11. And then P12, we're going to have to wait for this to rejig. P12, Gin Tonics, the driver who had a really good start of the race, was leading the race for pretty much the first half, but ends up getting into a bit of trouble and ends up finishing almost last. Whack Jumps and Auto Rotillion end up rounding out the ALR Season 10 Round 5. Have I mentioned it's Season 10 Round 5? I think I have. Feature race! Very tricky race there for the AMG driver. from Austria. But I'm sure he'll come back next week and perform very well. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. That was the race. It was a very interesting feature race indeed. Very interesting strategy from Hurricane that cost him the win in the end. And it was an even more exciting sprint. A load of drama at the sprint there right at the very beginning. I'm quickly going to pull up the standings. I haven't checked the standings at all since the race obviously finished, because I didn't want to know who won. So for the last 3 days now, I've been casting my eyes away from the finishing results. But now I can see them. That is the one benefit of doing a post-race commentary. Hurricane still ends up the championship with 138 points, only 15 points ahead of Ian, who ends up gaining P2. Pulte moves down to P3. He's now 7 points behind Ian, and he's only got 116 points. He's in P3, but only 6 points behind Pulte is Alpha Zad after his insane P1 finish in the sprint. Unfortunately, he had a terrible result in the feature, and looking back on his past record, it seems like he also had that in Suzuka as well. So very tough result there in the past couple of feature races for Alpha Zad. But it doesn't matter, because he's in P4, and look, he's only 28 points behind the lead. A gap of 28 points in Tier 1, that's like the gap between P4 and P5, ladies and gents. And only 2 points behind there is Pasti 87. He ends up, well, actually losing quite a significant amount of positions right there in the Drivers' Championship. P5 and P11 for Pasti. So there is the top 5 in the Drivers' Championship, and then we've got a 20-point gap between Pasti and the man in P6, Regnix. So the top 5 of the championship: Hurricane, Ian, M. Pulte, Alpha Zad, and Pasti 87. And the top 5 are only separated by 30 points. Very interesting race indeed. And I'm pretty sure the fastest lap point was given to Alpha Zad. Now, for those interested in the constructors, Mazda RX Vision, the team Mazda are absolutely dominating the championship by approximately 44 points. They are, it seems like they're going to have a pretty easy ride into P1 right there. The Mazda seems so strong this season. But the Porsche and the Lexus, they're both actually tied for P2 in the championship with 204 points apiece. But that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm definitely going to like that video. Maybe not. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. Round 5 of Season 10 of Tier 3 of ALR. Next week, I believe the commentary will be on Tuesday evening, which will only be 24 hours after the race. Of course, Monday night at 8 p.m. is the time for the race. Tuesday night at 8 p.m. will be the commentary. So be there or be square, as they say in Pulp Fiction. Anyway, do they even say? Right, anyway. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching this video. It has been a pretty good live stream. Thanks for tuning into the commentary. Very good race indeed. And I will see you all next week.